Welcome to another edition of Debating is for Life. I'm your host, Coach Tamer, and with us today, research scholar and philosopher, Larry Afun. Welcome, Larry.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's very nice to have you as a guest. And actually, you're the first guest that has approached me and asked to be a guest on my show. So I'm very, very happy about this. You're a friend of Emil, who was my previous guest. And what a wonderful guest he was. And so tell me, why did you want to come on my show today?
Well, because I watched the series with Emil, and I thought the questions were interesting. The structure of the debate itself, or what I would consider the conversation, was really unique. It was atypical than anything I've seen, and all the topics that you guys had discussed at the time were ones that piqued my interest. They lied within the domain of my interest. So,
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Larry. What are you doing in the University of Alberta right now? Is that where you are?
yes, I am. That's what I am. Yeah. My name is Larry Afun, and I am a incoming third year physiology and immunology student at the University of Toronto. I'm currently doing a research internship at the University of Alberta under the ELITE program, where I just helping the lab evaluate various cellular mechanisms to help in therapeutics for remyelination of multiple sclerosis patients. And I previously worked at the Innovation Hub at the University of Toronto, where I worked as a design researcher.
A
And
design in what kind of design? In medical research or scientific research?
right, so that is quite qualitative. So that's not quite typical to as hard scientific research. This is so much so as to look at the problems facing students at the University of Toronto and use qualitative and design research approaches to find what the problem is and design with students to come to a common ground as to how we can incorporate the student feedback into the university space.
Your interests are, and
Right.
one of
So,
the, we called you in the moniker a research scholar and a philosopher. So tell me about your interest in philosophy.
right. So, but I think at the core of it, I've always loved philosophy. So, because when I think about when I first began to have an interest in philosophy, it's not quite when I started to think of philosophy as a formal discipline. It started way back in, say, grade 11, as you'd call it, where I was walking down a street in the night and I began to ask myself questions about morality. And then fast forward 2 years from then, or a year or so from then, I came across the open free lecture by the Harvard professor Michael Sandel on justice, what's the right thing to do. And there I knew for certain that philosophy was something I enjoyed. And from then, it's just been constant sibling of philosophical books and podcasts as much as I can. So it is something that interests me. I think because at the core of it all, it's asking us, how do things work? How do you know what we know? And how can we live the good life?
So you're a searcher, which means you're searching for knowledge, for understanding, and so
Right.
it's no coincidence that you're a researcher as well. But yeah, so that's amazing. Really, in some ways, we're very much the same. Eclectic interests. I was also at your age searching and hungry for education and knowledge and reading books. But but in one way, we're very opposite. When I had my first taste of philosophy at Queen's University, I ran for the hills. I didn't last two classes. I was out of there. And so my main thing is because I was trying to make sense of the world and trying to kind of gain my own worldview, as soon as I brushed up against philosophers, I thought maybe they're going to influence me, and maybe I'll stop trying to figure it out if they've already figured out, and maybe they're because they're so smart and I'm so young, I'll be malleable and I'll just fall for everything that they say. What do you think about that?
No, I share that exact same sentiment in that there's maybe this is not too healthy, but I enjoy being an original thinker. And once I have a thought and I realize that someone else has come across a thought that I just fall in shambles. But I've since learned to let go of that and to know that just giving the vast number of people that have existed on Earth and will continue to exist, some ideas that you think you would have as original thoughts would be recurring. And I don't quite think it's it takes from the point that it's already been discovered or known in some sense. Because I think, although it can be the case that the thought wasn't original, there are some insight that I could bring that I see either
Yeah.
missing or lacking in the arguments.
I like it. When you see me doing this, I'm tapping in support in debating fashion. But yeah, I agree with you. I think thoughts, it's like synthesis, right? When you have
Exactly.
existing knowledge and you add new knowledge,
Right.
and when you bring those two things together, it creates
Right.
something completely new. And
Right.
it's like the blending of cultures, a blending of music. A lot of things have happened this way, and there's no reason to you know to seek to have completely original thoughts. I don't know, maybe, but as I told you before when we talked, debating is not really an honest conversation. And if you're
Yeah,
seeking truth, it's not our job to seek the truth as the
right.
debaters, because we're not always debating our own conscience, but it's the job
Exactly.
of the audience gets to see two really informed, articulate people making the case for both sides, and the audience gets to find the truth and
Right.
decipher what they think, what they believe. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's see. I want to show you a picture.
So this was me in my second year in high school, so grade 11, I suppose you'd call it, where I just run the 4x400 meter track race, and our team here won, as we have been
Nice.
for 3 years straight.
3 years
So
straight.
yeah, and we have various records in the school, which I hope haven't been broken at the time I'm speaking now. But as far as I'm concerned, we still have the standing record.
That's awesome. And how long ago was that?
This was, say, about 3.5 years ago.
So those guys are they still your friends today?
Yes, so the one to my left, I guess to my left as I sit here, is in Waterloo, and we speak a lot, and we even met
Right.
just a couple of days ago. But the other
Right.
two, I haven't heard from them.
What about here? Tell us a little bit about your high school experience and which led to this day, your high school graduation.
Right. Also, my high school, it was a no-brainer what I was going to pursue. It was going to be science because I was interested, as I think I've made clear, that I'm interested in how things work generally. So I took general science. I had my electives in physics, elective mathematics, chemistry, biology, and then some core subjects like core mathematics and core science and English literature and whatnot. And so in that school, I met, so the guy and the ladies to my left and the guy were all good friends of mine, really intelligent people. And honestly, I would base good parts of my success in school uh, to them, actually, because of the free exchange of ideas, which I think is very, very central to learning and to inquiring and to knowing more than you otherwise would
Yeah,
have.
sure. So a lot of students, when they go to university, they crawl into their own little hole, and then a lot of people are just little isolationists sitting in the library studying.
Right.
But if there's so many smart people at university, and you're lucky you found them at high school level. But if
Right.
you surround yourself with smart people, I mean, only good things can happen, right?
Exactly right.
They say you are the company that you keep. Well, speaking of that, who's this young fellow beside you in Ottawa here?
Right. He was a friend. I mean, he still is my friend from Ghana. But he's Canadian, so he came back after high school, and I met him here during the winter break. And coincidentally, this
And
is
you
when
said that at this time you were working on publishing a philosophy book.
right, yes, I just began rounding up the final ends of my manuscript, and eventually it got out onto publication shortly after that.
So where can this book be found?
So for now, it's on Amazon. I'm looking forward to doing a print version soon, but for now, it's titled "The Philosophies of Everyday Life: An Outlook on Issues That Create Philosophical Inquiry." So if you want to look at that, it's on Amazon.
Okay, I'll put a link for that on this program, right? Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about your book and about everyday philosophy, and how can the average person appreciate philosophy in their everyday life?
Right. So the book was birthed from essentially just about 3 years ago. I had read an article in Ghana on uh, the denying of admission into a secondary school based to some students who had dreadlocks, so they were Rastafarians. So that's the signature of their culture, and they were denied admission into the school just on that basis. And I thought all the reasons that they gave were, as at the time, were philosophically empty to me. And so I said, well, I had just begun having a good interest in philosophy. And then the purpose of that article itself, I must state emphatically, was not to give the right answer. It was a way of piecing out how different philosophies and philosophers would have looked at the problem if they could. And I'm sure you quickly realize from the article that, which is featured in the book as well, that I gave some pushbacks. I tried to steel man all the arguments that were made
Yeah.
to the motion of denying them admission, and then this interest began seeping into a much more broader inquiry. So then it didn't stop at the articles. It became a more broader inquiry into what kind of
So
philosophies come about
those
today.
guys with the dreadlocks, were they
Right.
eventually admitted, or did they cut their hair, or what happened?
Right. So one of them finally got admitted to it. It became a human rights issue when it had a court case, and at the end they were
Really?
admitted. Yeah. So
Wow.
one of them was admitted, and the other was offered a scholarship by another international school that accepted them.
But they never cut their hair.
Exactly. They never cut their head. Yeah, thankfully.
Okay. And your academic pursuits also led you to this situation, this moment where you met one of your intellectual heroes. So tell us
Yeah.
about this.
This is it's still it might be running up to one of the happiest moments of my life because back in Ghana I used to watch again as I was developing my interest in philosophy, so moral philosophy in particular. And Professor Bloom to my left is a moral psychologist, so he does work in understanding why we have moral intuitions. Is it the case that we have moral intuitions even in the first place? And so in this picture, I not only got the opportunity to meet him, he gifted me 4 copies of his books, signed
Wow.
them, and we had a 30 minutes long conversation about the experience machine, which I honestly is one of the happiest moments of my life.
That's awesome. Good for you. You know, I went to teachers college at U of T, and I swear I know this guy. I swear I've either seen him, read his stuff. We took lots of psychology,
Right.
sociology courses. I'm sure that I must have seen his work before.
Certainly, he is a popular man in the field, so
All right.
it would be a surprise to me.
And so just before we start in our first activity of the day, I just want you to, you're only all of 20 years old right now, right?
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
see your life unfolding in the next several years? Like what do you think is going to happen to you over the course of the next 10 years?
This is an interesting question. Okay, I don't know as a matter of fact what my life would precede, but if I was to make a guess, it would certainly be the case that I would still be in some field of inquiry. But typically, if I want to have an idealistic picture of what my future would entail, it should be in some research domain, doing scientific research, and or
Mhm.
being a medical practitioner as well, because I do have aspirations to be a physician scientist. And philosophy is always going to be an integral part of my life because I don't need to have formal education per se. If I could, I would actually. If I had the space to do that, I would. But I would continue in philosophy
But as
for as
part of
long as
what you
I
want
know
to do
I
is
would have
also
the room.
includes field work where you go out there. Like and I kind of picture you as like the Indiana Jones of medical research. Like you're half professor and half adventurer. Is that what you're planning to do?
Exactly. That seems like the good life to me.
Yeah, me too. Good for you. Good for
Thank you.
you. Way to take advantage of your youth and make the most of it. All right, are you ready to begin our first activity of the day?
As ready as can be.